Americans always believed that some people are born like lakes. Their energy doesn't change very much. They stay much the same throughout their life. And some people are born with the energy of a river. Those rivers will widen and then they'll narrow and then they'll speed up and then they'll slow down. And I realized pretty early on that I'm a river and that at a certain point, I felt like I had outgrown that name. And then when I understood the energy of the name, I really understood why. I chose my name. And I think there's power in that. I chose the name because of the energy, and I felt that energy, and I wanted more fire. I wanted more power. I wanted to feel more in tune with myself. And so I curated very carefully a name that I could love, that embodied the energy of who I believed I was here to be. And I do believe that we have these desires to do things, often big times because we're meant to. But the reason we're meant to is because it's going to force you to come face to face with your greatest inner wound, that monster that's left hiding in the closet that you believe is going to like jump out at you. And I'm so glad I made that decision. I am Anniston. Like, I don't resonate at all with Anna anymore, but I love her. Like, I love her.
Welcome to the Empowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins, and I'm joined by Aniston Blair Riekstins. And man, have I wanted to record a podcast episode on this topic for a very, very long time.
I'm laughing to myself because we've probably talked about doing this episode, 50 times. And it just hasn't felt like the right time. But really, I think I wasn't ready. I'm not sure. But I'm excited as well about having this conversation and going deep.
You know, I have a number of times brought this topic up in rooms where Anniston is in the back of the room. I'm speaking to an audience. Sometimes it's 30 people, sometimes it's 500. And I have lovingly done it to nudge her and push her forward, because part of her work is to nudge and push and encourage me, and part of mine is to nudge and push and encourage her back. And so it's about supporting the other person in your life to be their highest and their greatest potential. And, you know, I have shared sometimes in audiences about this, and I see her just sink in her chair. And it's like, I can just see she's just so not ready yet. And then afterwards, she's like, you did it again, you. And what is so amazing is Anniston came to me and said, hey, I would really love to record this episode. And I would love to have this on your podcast, and I would love to have this on mine. And I'm ready to share it in my truth today. And so, Anniston, why don't you kick it off?
All right, let's go all the way back. And I want to say it was probably about 15 years when I discovered something called numerology. And this was very much towards the very beginning of when Rudi and I had met. And it was something that I fell in love with. I've spoken a lot about numerology on the Empowered Life podcast, as well as on the Aniston Riekstins show. So that should come as no surprise to anyone who listens to our podcasts. But a couple of years after that, I discovered a more rare form of numerology called soul contract numerology. And this was, again, one of those moments where I was driving by a Barnes & Noble. Rudi was out of town on a business trip. And all of a sudden, I heard this like voice in my head that said, pull in the parking lot. Just go into Barnes & Noble. And I know what that feeling feels like. I'm very intuitive. And so I followed it. So I walked into Barnes & Noble, headed towards my favorite section, of course, which is spirituality and new age and all kinds of stuff like that. And as I was walking down the aisle, it was one of those moments where a book literally like popped off the shelf. One of those where it just falls off and you're like, how did that happen? Where did that come from? Well, this book literally fell off in front of me, and it was called Decode Your Soul Contract. And I was like, this is interesting. I've never heard of this before. So of course I buy the book, and immediately I'm immersed into a world that feels more like a remembrance to me. And essentially what it is the study of birth names and the energy of a birth name. And by interpreting the birth name, you're able to interpret your soul's plan, your spiritual map for this life. And I was so intrigued. I'm just being pulled deeper into this work. And I wanted to know everything there was about it. So I decided I was going to get certified. Well, in the process of getting certified, there are 3 different levels, which of course I was like, I want to get certified in all 3. And in one of the trainings, we were learning about something called a name optimization. And as we were looking at these, at names and interpreting names, we were able to see that birth name creates the bulk of your energy. But when you alter or change your name, or like, for instance, as a woman, we so often will change our last name when we get married. And while it doesn't completely change the birth name energy, which is the bulk of your energy and what you're here to experience, it can either help you, or the new name can serve to be a bit of a hindrance and create some obstacles for you, which again, I do believe everything is meant to be, it always has a reason. But when I interpreted my married name, I saw that there were some pretty big issues and some things that were not necessarily advantageous and or would help me in my journey, but also could create some potential conflict with Rudi and with my kids when I put it next to their birth charts. And I said to Rudi, when I discovered this, I was like, I don't know. I mean, this doesn't feel good to me. Yet the idea of going back and just using my maiden name also doesn't feel good to me, because I was proud. I'm proud to be a Riekstins. There was no part of me that didn't want to have the same last name and use the same last name as my husband and as my children. So I started talking about to Rudi, like, how would you feel if I optimized my name? I could just change it. I could alter it just even a little bit and would have a different name overlay, or the numbers would be more advantageous, which would mean energetically this would be healthier for me. And Rudi, being Rudi, was at first like, wait, just let me get this clear. So you want to change your name? And I'm like, I just want to investigate. I just want to play with this and see if I can find another name that feels aligned to me and feels aligned to where I am. And this led me on a journey. It didn't take long. And I had found a name that was energetically suitable, that felt really aligned for me. And that's when I made the decision to change my name. I was born Anna Marie Hovenkamp. And when I married Rudi, I was Anna Riekstins, and I changed my name to Aniston Blair Riekstins.
The story that I tell in front of audiences all the time, using this lovingly to nudge my wife forward, it's important for me to anchor. She was never mad anytime I did it. She would laugh at me and be like, but it would never come with that, like, cannot believe you told people because I'm not ready for them to know. It was more that when she changed her name, she wanted the name change. She wanted people to use it, but she didn't want anybody to know she did it. And so it was kind of like, well, how do you do both? And so it was more tongue in cheek. And the reason I would bring it into my live events, and still do and continue to do and will do for the end of time, at least my time, is I tell people when I'm on stage that life is about a constant state of change and evolution, and that we're supposed to change. We're supposed to learn. We're supposed to grow. I tell the story of the caterpillar and the butterfly going for a cup of coffee, and the caterpillar judgingly says to the butterfly, "Oh my God, you've changed." And the butterfly's like, "Dude, we're supposed to change." And I use that to set up the foundation that I am not married today to the lady I married years ago. She is not the same person. Almost none of her is the same. I proposed to Anna Marie Hovenkamp. I'm married today to the same person legally, but her name is Aniston Blair Riekstins. What she likes is different. What she does is different. Who she is different. And I've got so comfortable being able to now ask the question, who are you today and how can I best love you today? Because I can't love her the way I loved her yesterday because, well, that person's dead and gone and there's a whole new version of her and she's reborn, rebirthed, and she's now anew. And she's given me permission to do the same. And so that's why I've brought that into some of my speaking, to say to people, like, stop fighting change. Your company's creating a change. Good. Change is good. Stop fighting the old way. If you're in a relationship and your partner says, "I don't like that, I like this now," don't turn around and say, "Well, you've always liked that." Well, you don't have to always be who you were. You get to change. And so when she changed her name, not then, but today, I celebrate the process because I'm like, we get to every single day. We get to create the change. Now, I think it's really important that we ground the actual process of her coming to me and what I went through, my level of understanding. And she really made this a simple, like, oh my God, yeah. And then this is what happened. So here's my version. She takes this numerology course, and I love that she's a learner. She's an avid learner. And she then comes to me and she says, oh my gosh, I've learned all of this. And when I took on your name, it layered on an additional layer of energy, meaning we might have some conflicts in how we communicate. It might bring up some wounds. It might bring up some triggers. It means my kids might want to rebel against me because our name energies are now creating a little bit of resistance. It doesn't mean we'll have bad relationships. It just means from time to time, we might have this energy that is layered on top of who we are currently, and we could actually clear it. Now, when you say to me, we could live better lives, have less stress, less of these unnecessary energies of opposition, well, why wouldn't you? Well, when she came to me and she said, I want to change my name a little bit, I was thinking Anna Marie would become Anna Marie Ann or Anna Marie Ree. I don't know. Something would be subtly changed that nobody would ever know. And I was like, yeah, babe, all for it. You go for it. And I went away on a business trip. I was in Miami for 4 days and I came home on a Friday. And I walk in and she says to me, I'm changing my name to Aniston Blair. And I remember that thought of like, I'm sorry, what did you say? How do we sell that one? Oh, okay, this is real. And I never ever called her Anna ever again. From that moment forward, I have always called her Anniston. Not even once have I slipped and said Anna. And it's because in that moment, I just realized, okay, this is something she's committed to. This is my job now. My job is to anchor this. And I also knew that this was going to be the most difficult thing she's ever going to do in her life. And I get to be the one that accepts it immediately. And I'm the one that gets to make it easy. And so we would have friends come over and she would say, yeah, I'm changing my name to Anniston. And they would ask a few questions. They would give us that look like, let's pretend like we're not judging. And they would then later say, hey, Anna, could you pass me the salad? And I would say, Anniston. And they'd go, oh, yes, sorry. And I just kept correcting people over and over and over. And it was the most beautiful thing to watch her have the confidence to start to create this change. And when I say that, I don't mean that happened overnight. It did to me. For her, it was like she changed her name and she legally went and changed her name. She changed her signature at work. But because her name was Anna and now she was Anniston, it was almost like everybody thought, well, maybe her name was always Anniston and she just went by Anna. So they continued to call her Anna, and her signature said Anniston. And when she would introduce herself to new people, well, they called her Anniston. But she never corrected anyone for calling her Anna. And I did, but I wasn't in all these conversations. But over the years, I've seen her step more and more and more and more into that level of truth. But there was always a little bit of trepidation. There was always that feeling of like, oh, what if people judge me? What if people think I'm crazy? What if people don't understand? Like, who changes their name? Like, what is that? But I want to speak into something for a moment, because I bet you people are listening to this thinking, oh my God, I now need to optimize my name. That's going to be scary. I married someone. I've changed my last name. I was born with a name. What is that name? Is it optimized? And I don't want you to freak out about it. But I do want you to know what's in it for you. If you do know what your chart looks like, what your energy looks like, and what it says for you. I married a sweet, kind, generous, loving, dare I say pleasant, wonderful Anna Marie Hovenkamp. And Anna was the perfect wife. Anna was always happy. Anna was always accommodating. Anna would always do the dishes and the laundry and cook and clean, and Anna was just wonderful to be around. And once a year, Anna would have a tough day where she would cry, there would be a release, and then she would be good for a whole other year. And I was always like, this isn't good. This isn't normal. Like, we need this to change. And I would encourage her to speak and to tell her truth and to tell me what's going on in her head. And I would push and push and push for open conversation. And we made incredible strides in the first few years of our marriage, of her being able to speak her truth and say, okay, well, internally, I'm actually frustrated. You never do the dishes. I always do the dishes. And so we started to create those changes. But when she changed her name to Aniston Blair Riekstins, my wife changed almost overnight. Now, the energies don't work that fast, but she did. She became different. Dare I say, she is not the same person. Her sexual preferences changed. Her food choices changed. How she worked out changed. How she walks changes. How she dressed changes. She is more courageous. She's more bold. She's more in her power, in her authority. She is fierce. She's still wonderful. She's still pleasant. But make no mistake, I do 50% of the dishes now. It has been a beautiful thing to witness you stepping into your knowing and your truth.
Well, thank you. You are the best, most incredible husband on the planet. And clearly God knew the exact person I was going to need to support me and stand alongside me in this lifetime. As I'm sitting here listening to this back, and I think what is really important for you to understand, for the listener to understand, is that there are moments in life where you're going to have a feeling, a knowing that you need to do something, but that doing might be not normal. Maybe it's not what society says is normal. Well, what is normal? Normal is just something that's been around long enough that it's become part of our comfort zone. But at some point, it wasn't normal. All the things that we do today that are so normal to us were at one point weird, different. Only a few people were doing this or saying this or talking about this. And now that I've almost lived 45 years, I've seen this. You get old enough and you get wise and you start to see the pattern. You're like, oh, now I get it. Well, I was born with a fear of not belonging. I would say my core wound is rejection, judgment, is not belonging, is being separate from. And so when that is your wound, then you will do whatever it takes. And your nervous system will make sure that you're on board with whatever it takes for you to stay safe, to stay mediocre, to stay accepted, to stay in the crowd. Yet my authentic self is a trailblazer. My authentic self doesn't just like take a program or an idea or philosophy and replicate it. I'm always thinking about how can I innovate on this? How can I do something different here? So I have always been naturally drawn to things that are mysterious, that are not the norm, that are not being spoken about around a dinner table. But I've done it behind closed doors. Like for a long, long time, that was me. I was very compartmentalized because I was a respected professional who, dressed the part, looked the part, always said the right thing. And I didn't believe the two could coexist. And this was a part of that. So this happened a long time ago, at least 8-9 years ago, when I made this change. And I remember making the decision was scary, but I knew, I just had this knowing. And I couldn't logically say, oh my gosh, this is absolutely 100% what I have to do and it's going to lead to everything that I want. It was more of my heart was saying, yes, yes. What's interesting is, as it relates to names, this is not a new thing. This is an old practice. Way back when our ancestors, when they would fall upon hard times, then the priest or the rabbi would come and visit their homes and they would say, okay, I'm going to give you a new name. Because it has been known for a very long time that names create sound and sound is creative. And the tonality, the tones and the vibration in your name acts like a beacon. It acts like a beacon for relationships, for experiences. It holds your blueprint. So the name that you carry around, I always say, like, imagine if all of a sudden you had a different name and just play with it in your mind. If you walked in and you were like, my name is Michelle, you even feel different. It feels like a different energy. So changing your name is not necessarily for everyone, but it also isn't something that is completely out of left field. And the Native Americans always believed that some people are born like lakes. Their energy doesn't change very much. They stay much the same throughout their life. And some people are born with the energy of a river. And those rivers will widen and then they'll narrow and then they'll speed up and then they'll slow down. And I realized pretty early on that I'm a river, and that at a certain point, I felt like I had outgrown that name. And then when I understood the energy of the name, I really understood why. And so I chose my name. And I think there's power in that. I chose the name because of the energy, and I felt that energy, and I wanted more fire. I wanted more power. I wanted to feel more in tune with myself. And so I curated very carefully a name that I could love, that embodied the energy of who I believed I was here to be. And so that was the first part. But the real juice, the real gold, came after, because for years I was petrified of it coming up in conversation around a boardroom or around a dinner table or, around people that I didn't feel safe around or comfortable around, that I was afraid, what if they judge me? What if they think I'm weird or crazy or whatever? What if they don't understand? And I felt like I needed to be able to prove why I made this decision and to perform instead of just standing in what I did because I wanted to. The end of story. And I do believe that we have these desires to do things oftentimes because we're meant to. But the reason we're meant to is because it's going to force you to come face to face with your greatest inner wound, that monster that's left hiding in the closet that you believe is going to jump out at you. And I'm so glad I made that decision. I am Anniston. I don't resonate at all with Anna anymore, but I love her. I love her. I love who she was. I love what she taught me and what she was able to hold and to carry for as long as she was. But I am not the same person that I used to be. And what I've learned is that my making that decision and healing my need to belong and my willingness to live out of alignment and out of integrity with myself in order to feel like I was more acceptable, that my willingness to work through that has allowed me now to become a walking, talking permission slip for women to be who they want to be, because I'm about as weird as they come. And if I can do it, you can do it. That's what I always say. I'm like, listen, you throw it at me. There is rarely a room or a container that I've created where women have a crazier story than some of what I've done. And I think that there's beauty in that. And so I tend to attract a lot of women who have that trailblazer energy, who are here to be innovators of the new, not of just recreating what is, but to do things a different way. But they need someone to model for them what it looks like to be able to hold your head high and to bring all of you wherever you are, and to not feel ashamed or a need to hide it. And even though for some of you, you might be saying, well, what's the big deal? You changed your name, right? But what it represented for me was one very radical stake in the sand saying, I'm here to do things a different way. And it was not my first stake, and has certainly not been my last. And it prepared me for the many things that would come that would ask of me the same, which is, you need to go first. You need to be the first through the fire here. You need to do things different. You need to be willing to do things different. You need to be willing to be saying things and words and talking about things that other people aren't talking about, because that's what I came here to do. I'm a leader. I'm a visionary. I'm an innovator of the new. And I'm not advocating now everyone needs to go change their name. No. I mean, sure, if that's something you're called to, look into it. But what I'm advocating for is be you. Just be you unapologetically, because I can't imagine if I had not. I can't imagine my life not having been able to experience the other side of me taking action and me making that change. And yes, it took a lot of courage, but the choosing didn't take the courage. For me, it was the showing up and being willing to share with people and not need them to agree or condone or even understand why I did it. When people say to me, oh, you changed your name, I'm like, yep. And then I don't even feel the need anymore to be like, well, here's why. Rarely ever even share that unless someone asks me, because I don't need to. It was just a decision. It was a choice, and it's who I am. And I am committed to walking in my truth fully. We just did a podcast episode on this, Rudi and I, and especially moving into 2026, which is this energy of the fire horse, which is you fully embodying your full self, your passionate self, but also doing things different, your unique brand, like being proud of being unique. Our kids, like Rudi and I have an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old. And let me just tell you, the children, like the young generation, are our teachers here. They are teaching us every single day their open-mindedness, how they are acceptable of other kids being different, dressing differently, speaking differently, having different sexual orientation, even associating themselves differently, maybe by a different gender or animal. I mean, you name it. That, like, I believe we are walking into a world that is a lot more like that. We will celebrate the uniqueness, and those that are trying to be like everyone else will actually be the ones that feel a little bit more on the outside, because what AI and all of these things that we're creating to build more efficiency in our life, what it can't recreate is your unique perspective, your unique expression, your unique gifts, and how you came here to create. But you have to be willing to be different, and you've got to be willing to fly that flag. And I just want to invite any of you listening that are feeling that urge to do so, but just don't know how to do it or don't feel like you have the courage to, like, seek me out. Come hang out with me and let me walk you by the hand through this process, because you get to fully experience what it is to be your 100% authentic self. And nothing makes me happier than to help women and men do that.
I want to ground. The episode has heavily focused around Anniston changing her name. And although Anniston has in her business supported many people to name their companies, best-selling authors to name their books, she's even had people optimizing their names through her. That's not the bulk of her work, and this by no means is a plug or promotion for what she does in that field. Although if you call to it, that is available to you. The point of this episode is for you to walk in your truth and for you to put down the unnecessary belief that somebody else validates you, and that no is a complete sentence, and that yes is a complete sentence, and okay is a complete sentence, and thanks is a complete sentence, and is a complete sentence, and you just to get to be you unapologetically. We have shared so many times in different platforms the conversations that are so different with our kids than the conversations that we have had internally. And I just think about what are the conversations our kids are going to have, like our grandchildren one day, because, we could sit at a dinner table and say to our kids, we ask questions all the time. And we say to them, do you like somebody at school? We don't ask, do you like a guy or do you like a girl? We're open-ended. And, we get our kids to ask questions, and we say to our children, who do you like? Do you have a preference right now? And, my son, being 11 years old, turned around and he said, well, I don't actually know. I haven't really met someone that makes me think this way or that way. And I love the ability to be so open that there isn't this judgment or this shame in anything, or to identify with an animal or as a person, as what we're seeing globally right now in kids or in children coming out and dating a girl and then dating a guy and then going back and dating a girl. Now, that's not present in our life. Our kids are still too young, but this future is coming for all of us. And how beautiful is it if we could just learn the lesson that I so beautifully got a front row seat to in my marriage, and that is loving the person in front of you for who they are, today. And so there's two lessons here for you if you're open to them. The first one is you get to be you unapologetically, whoever the F you want to be every single day, and everybody else gets to acclimatize to you. They get to
or not, or they leave. But if someone can't allow you, if they make you so uncomfortable because you're being authentic, it's only a reflection of where they're uncomfortable being authentic themselves. And that should never be your barometer for should I or shouldn't I. Ever, 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 ever. You be you, and the external reality will adjust. And if people leave, other people will come who will see you, who will support you, who will reflect back to you the powerful, authentic self that you are in their acceptance.
Mm-hmm. And that's lesson number one. And so lesson number two in this is that it's your job to stay open to loving the person in front of you the way that they need to be loved. And you can have an expectation that people need to see you a certain way, meet you a certain way. Well, you have the same obligation to everybody else around you. And so today, could you walk more in your truth and in your power? And if you don't know how or where to start, could you find somebody that's doing it beautifully and reach out to them and ask them for support? And if there's somebody in your life, which they are, many, could you just ask them today, who are you today and how can I best love you?
I love this episode so much. And I'm just sitting here having a moment of gratitude for myself and for you. There was no way you were going to allow me to avoid being my true self. And that is the greatest gift, Rudi Riekstins, that you have given me. And among many others, including our two beautiful children and 15 years of a best friend and a partner. But I'm also so freaking proud of myself because I couldn't have imagined 15 years ago, maybe even 10 or 5 years ago, sitting here and having this conversation and doing it with love and appreciation for every step of the way. And I know that I will continue to change and evolve, as will you, and as have you. But what we have found, and this is what I want to say to anyone listening who has some fear there, we have found that we've grown closer together, not further apart. Even though when we met, I mean, our connection was so strong, I still think it was that connection that pulled us together, but we still had our wounds to work through. And in working through those wounds, we've come back to who we are authentically. And a part of that path for me was, changing my name. It was one step, but it certainly wasn't the whole path. There were many, many steps that happened that brought me back into alignment. And I'm continuing to lean in, because as I do, I become a better wife, a better mother, a better steward of my purpose and my mission. I become more loving to myself. And I have so much more capacity to give Rudi. And he, in doing this, the same thing, has so much more capacity to give me, because I'm giving from wholeness, not from neediness. I don't need him. I love him, but I don't need, there's a difference, right? I don't need him to be okay with myself. I love spending time with me. I know that I'm capable of anything. Even if I was the only person on the planet, I would be fine. But man, do I want him in my life. Like, it's the desire. It's pure desire, not traced with neediness and fear. And that is powerful. And that is a recipe for a lifelong, beautiful marriage, as long as we continue to show up and evolve and to expand and be true to ourselves. And so we've said this before on many different episodes, and we'll continue to say it a lot, because I think that one of our gifts that we're here to teach is as it relates to relationship and union and what marriage truly can be. And this has been a part of our story and our path.
It has been an honor to walk this path alongside you. And to record this episode today was the cherry on the cake for me, because I do think that you came into this time, into this space as Anna Marie Hovenkamp, so that you could be challenged to create something really big and scary. And for you, that was a name change. And it gave you permission, a walking permission slip, to be your authentic self, to be somebody who breaks the mold of what is, that can bring in things that are different, that can challenge the status quo. And that if you didn't do that, you wouldn't be able to be who you came here to be. And so I'm honored to watch your journey. And this is definitely only the beginning. To everybody that is listening, watch this space, because this is where she grows, because she's living 100% in her truth with no shade, no shadows. There's no hiding. And I think that's when the world will truly get to see and benefit from all of what you have to offer. But this wouldn't be a podcast episode in self-development if we didn't turn it around back onto you. And how could you right now, today, stand in your truth? How could you stand in your power? How could you shine your light and have absolutely no shade? Because where there's shade, there's often shame. Could you just be unapologetically you? And how could you today not only show up in your truth, but support somebody near you to show up in theirs? We love you so much, and we'll catch you in the next episode.